Hello, welcome to Instagram Live. My name is Mark McCormick. I'm an education specialist at the ENC. It's really beautiful here. It's springtime, the flowers are blooming. We've got lots of things behind us in our desert area, including the beautiful California poppies, our state flower. But we're not here to talk about flowers as much. We're here to talk about something I think is pretty interesting. Some people find it a little bit gross. If you do find it gross, that's okay. Don't worry, it's just an Instagram Live, right? It's not actually there. But before we talk about that, we'll wait maybe a minute or two, see if anybody else wants to join. While we wait, I wanted to talk about what we have going for the rest of the week. We have Miss Valerie reading her books all week, and they are great things. Make sure to catch those on Facebook. And then on Instagram Live Wednesday, we have Raquel, who's going to be talking about how to leave no trace when you're outside, whether that's hiking or camping or walking around. And then Friday, we have our other lead naturalist, Heather, and she's going to talk about Native American plant uses. 500 years ago, there was no Amazon.com, there was no PlayStation 4s, no iPhones, all these different things, but they still were able to survive using all this stuff. Plants, right? And they would use natural resources for medicine, for food, for building shelter, and it's going to be really, really interesting. She's going to explain a lot of them, and it's really especially interesting for us because these are native plants that grow here in Orange County, so you can find them not far away. And you can also purchase them when we have our native plant sales. So it's a good thing to check out, pretty handy thing to check out. So if you have any questions or any comments or anything like that, whether they are in text form or emoji form, let me know. Add them in the comments. We'll try and answer them. And I want to apologize. There is some planes that will fly by. They do it whether we want them to or not. So if you have trouble hearing my voice, it's not my fault. It's the planes. Sorry about that. We're going to start talking about what type of animals we're talking about. So there's many, many different kinds of animals in the world, right? There's dogs, there's polar bears, there's zebras, there's dolphins, there's birds. Too many different kinds of animals. So scientists put them into different categories in order to understand them better. The category that we're going to talk about today is arthropods. So we're talking about things that are really, really small. Things that some people find creepy. Things that have 6 legs or 8 legs, and things that have a couple of other really cool adaptations too. And to talk about our first adaptation, I have a very interesting friend, one of my favorite animal ambassadors here at the Nature Center. You may have seen him in a recent YouTube video. It's Ringo. This is Ringo. Ringo is a blue death feigning beetle. And he gets the blue, well, you can see where the name comes from, right? He's got kind of a blue grayish hue, and he's death feigning. That doesn't mean that he can kill a human being with poison or anything else like that. The death part, it just means he plays dead. Feigning is a special scientific word that means acting. So he acts like he's dead. That helps to prevent predators from eating him. The kind of animals that would want to eat Ringo are the type of animals that don't want to eat a dead animal. So it helps him to survive where he lives in the desert, which is pretty convenient because we are right now in the desert area of the ENC. This is the type of place he would like to live. He lives in the Mojave deserts of Southern California and the Sonoran deserts of Arizona, northern Mexico, that sort of thing. You can see he has a pretty interesting shell, right? All those little bumps. That shell is one of the things that makes him an arthropod. All arthropods have what's called an exoskeleton. Barry doesn't have he doesn't have bones on the inside like you do. Ringo, sorry, I get the names confused. Ringo has bones on the outside. That's his shell, his exoskeleton. That helps to protect him. He doesn't have a backbone like you do, like a dog does, like a dolphin does, like a fish does. He is called an invertebrate, means he doesn't have a backbone. And all arthropods fall into that category too. They are all invertebrates. They don't have a backbone. That shell helps to protect them from the world outside. So it helps protect them from impacts, kind of like armor. And that blue, grayish color that you see, that's also another adaptation. In the desert, it's really, really hot and really, really dry. And when we get hot and dry, our lips sometimes get dry too, right? So you put on chapstick. My friend puts on chapstick too, but he doesn't have any lips. What happens is his exoskeleton produces its own waxy coating. And that bluish grayish color is the waxy coating that helps keep moisture inside of his body, just like the chapstick helps keep moisture inside of your lips. So pretty neat little adaptation. that he has. Another really interesting thing about Ringo that I think is really cool is he is one of the longest living arthropods around. Most arthropods only live for a couple days, couple weeks, maybe a couple months if they're lucky. Ringo can live up to over 12 years, which is really, really long for an arthropod. He spends his whole entire day walking along the desert floor and looking for his favorite food, which is dead stuff. Could be a dead animal, but it could also mostly be leaves and flowers that have fallen to the ground. And he goes ahead and eats those. And then he does a strange thing. After he eats his food, he sometimes goes to the bathroom. Very strange, right? We all do it, I guess. But he goes to the bathroom, and then what actually comes out isn't something smelly that you have to pick up with a plastic bag. It's actually something that's really, really helpful. It's soil for new plants to grow. So he's what's called a decomposer. He gets rid of dead stuff, whether that's dead plants like leaves and flowers, or dead animals that are no longer alive, or even animal waste like other poop, and he'll turn that into plant soil for new plants to grow. So he's really, really important. Some people are grossed out by small, creepy, crawly animals like this, but they're actually one of the most important animals on planet Earth because they get rid of that dead stuff and allow plants to grow, and plants give us lots of things like, air and food and houses, all that nice stuff. So he's a really, really important animal in Southern California, but also one of my favorite animal ambassadors that we have here at the ENC. So we're going to move on to another adaptation and another arthropod. Everybody, I think they have a waving emoji. Is that correct? You can do a waving emoji in the comments, and I don't know if he's going to recognize that, but it's the effort that counts. Our next friend is going to be a little bit bigger. Sorry if it's a little bit darker in here. There's an important reason why we're in the dark. I'll tell you about it a little bit later. But our next friend is bigger than Ringo and pretty interesting too. This is my friend, and his name is Woody. He was named after the cowboy in Toy Story, if you've seen those films, very popular films. And he's called Woody because, he likes to think that he's made of wood. His really famous adaptation, his superpower, is camouflage, and he's trying to look like a stick. So we call him a stick bug, stick insect, walking stick, lots of different names. And he lives in trees and plants, and he tries to look like a stick. And it's really, really effective camouflage that helps her to survive. I say her because almost all walking sticks you find are going to be females. Females can make their own eggs, and from those eggs grow more females. So over 90% of all walking sticks are actually females. So if you see one, chances are it's a girl, like Woody here. And Woody is also showing off a really, really interesting adaptation that arthropods have, but not all arthropods. She has 6 giant legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 little antennae that help her sense the world around her. And now all arthropods are either going to have 6 or 8 legs. She has 6, so she's what we call an insect, their own little family within the arthropod family. If she had 8, she would be an arachnid, like a spider or something a little bit more frightening like that. But she only has 6, and what she does is she walks around all day on trees, and that's pretty handy because her favorite food is actually just leaves. So they can eat many, 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 many leaves all over the place. In fact, in some places around the world, some people have them as pets, and then they maybe throw away their cage and clean out their cage every month or so like they're supposed to, and they don't notice that their female walking sticks have laid eggs in the dirt. And sometimes they'll throw those out, and those eggs could end up on the ground. New walking sticks are born, and when they're born, when they hatch from their eggs, they're really, really small, smaller than a dime coin. So they'll hatch from the eggs, and they'll eat plants. So much so that they can kind of be a bit of a pest, a bit of a nuisance. But around here in Southern California, we have our own walking sticks. You can find walking sticks in lots of different places around the world, in the rainforest, in the western United States, and other parts of the United States. So they're pretty interesting arthropods that survive with some really, really good camouflage. I've never actually seen one in the wild because they blend in really, really well, and I don't notice them. But if some of you are really good observers, you may be able to spot them when you go hiking around here. You see how she's kind of reaching her arms out? She can't really see that well. She uses her antennas, as I said, to sense the world around her, but she also kind of feels around to see where the next branch might be. Kind of like when you are walking around your house at night and you feel around so that you don't stub your toe or anything else like that. She is feeling around for the next branch that she can find so she can climb over to it. But if an animal were to grab her by her leg, she can actually let that leg go and then she'll grow a new one. She can't do that many times, but she can let that leg go and the animal will fly away or run away with their leg, and they'll still be able to survive. It's another trick that she has up her sleeve to survive, or an adaptation. Another one is sometimes when she's scared or startled, she'll drop from the tree and land on her back with her legs sticking up in the air, and she'll look dead, kind of like Ringo, the death feigning beetle. It's another one of her adaptations that she has to survive, and these animals are really good at surviving. Like I said, sometimes they're too good at surviving and they become pests when they get released in the wild accidentally. So we're going to move on to our next animal. If you want to try another emoji wave hand, that would be okay with us. Okay, so our next animal friend is one that some people are scared of, so much so that there's a pretty famous word that describes a fear of this type of animal. It's called arachnophobia. And if you look at the end of the word phobia, that means afraid of something, a fear of something, and the beginning is arachnid, right? She is an arachnid. And we know that she's an arachnid because we can see 8 legs. 8 legs means she's part of the arachnid family within the arthropod family. So you can see her 8 legs. Let's go ahead and count along. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's more than she's supposed to have. Don't worry, she doesn't have 2 extra legs. If you look at the very front of her body right here, you can see she has 2, they almost look like tiny legs. Those are actually almost like her arms. Arachnids have their own physical adaptations called pedipalps, and those pedipalps help them do different things. If she was a scorpion, another kind of arachnid, her pedipalps would be pincers. If she was a tarantula, like she is, her pedipalps would be arms that kind of help her to grab prey, but mostly help her to feel her way around burrows. She lives underground in burrows, and she uses those pedipalps to help feel around. Again, like if you've ever walked around your house with the lights off, you might feel around with your hands so you don't bump into the wall or stub your toe. She does the same thing. And she spends most of her life inside of her burrows, and she doesn't make a big giant web that you can see. She lines her burrow with webs on the inside, and maybe an animal might walk into that burrow and get stuck on those webs, and then she's going to have a pretty easy little snack, which is pretty nice.
There's a question.
We have a question. All right.
Why are some spiders furry and some are not?
This is a very good question. Some spiders are furry, like my friend, by the way. Her name is Charlotte, and some spiders are not furry, maybe like a black widow or a daddy longleg. Charlotte has some really interesting fur that makes her look cute, kind of like a puppy, but her fur is not to be soft and keep her warm. Her fur is to actually scare away predators. She can kick out those hairs that you see, and they'll irritate your skin, almost like if you've ever gotten fiberglass on your skin. It kind of feels like that. It's not too bad. It's not going to make an animal sick, but it's going to make them remember not to approach one of these tarantulas. Let's see, very good question and a good observation too, because you can see the little hairs on their exoskeleton. So maybe an animal like a coyote might come along and sniff the tarantula, and then they would kick out the hairs into the coyote's sensitive nose, and that would scare away the coyote, and they would remember that for quite a while, not to approach a tarantula that way, which is a pretty cool adaptation because she's not very fast, and she's actually really, really docile, which means she's very calm, almost friendly. There's a tarantula species that lives in California called the California tarantula. That makes sense, right? Charlotte is actually from Chile in South America. She's a Chilean rose-haired tarantula, and you can see the rosy hairs. And the reason that we have a Chilean rose-haired tarantula instead of a native California tarantula, we usually like to have native animals here at the ENC because they have a lot of really cool adaptations to survive where we all live. But the reason that we have a Chilean rose-haired tarantula instead of a California one is because she is actually one of the most docile species of tarantula. So even though a California tarantula might have cooler adaptations to survive in our habitat, it's not going to be very fun if she decides to use her fangs. She has fangs, but they're not where your teeth are. Her fangs are almost where the bottom of your neck is, so they're underneath her body. And you can kind of see, maybe in this angle, her fangs are right about there. And if she was upset with something I was doing, or if she thought I was a predator, she would give me several warning signs. She's going to pick up those legs, she's going to pick up those pedipalps, and then she's going to lift up her head so that I can see those fangs, and then she's going to expose those fangs. And they're not too big, pretty big for her head size. And if she decides to inject me with those fangs and inject venom, then I'm not going to die. I'm not going to go to the hospital, but I will probably cry a little bit. She has the same kind of venom as a bee, and last time I was stung by a bee, I may have cried a little bit. And she has a lot more of that bee venom than a bee would have, so it's going to hurt quite a bit. But unless you're allergic to that type of venom, then you should be all right. But like I said, she's going to show me a bunch of signs before she would decide to bite. And do you know how many times she's bit me? I've taken her to different schools, tons of different schools. We've taken her on different field trips. I've handled her almost every day, and she's bit me 0 times. So she's pretty friendly, and she's used to it. But if you see a tarantula outside while you go hiking, if you see a tarantula near your house, that doesn't mean you should pick it up. It's a wild animal. It might get scared, and maybe it might hurt you by injecting venom, but you might actually accidentally drop her. If I was to drop her right now, she might not survive. That exoskeleton is strong, but it's not that strong. So we don't want to drop her. And we want to observe animals in their wild habitat, but we don't want to interfere with them surviving, right? It's not very nice of us, not very scientific of us. Her favorite food is bugs. She likes to eat other insects and arachnids, but small ones. She only eats about once a week. Her favorite food that I give her is worms, little mealworms, and she eats about once a week, which is pretty good for her because she's that size. But she has those fangs not to scare away other animals, not to hurt human beings. She has those fangs actually because that's how she digests her food. Her stomach doesn't have acid in it like yours does. Instead, she injects the venom and it kind of liquefies the inside of her prey, her food, and then she slurps it up like a milkshake, but it's like a bug milkshake. It's pretty good. And that's how she survives. That's why she has those fangs with that type of venom. You can see her moving her arms around a little bit, or her legs around a little bit similarly to the walking stick, and she's using them for the same purpose. She's usually more of a nocturnal animal. She likes it inside her burrow, so she doesn't like the light right now, but she can't really see that much anyway. Her eyes are more on the top of her head, right kind of where my thumb is pointing, and that kind of helps her to see shapes more than actual things. So she can tell if there's maybe a camera right above her head, or somebody's hand, or a coyote, or a bird, that sort of thing. All right, well, I am going to move on to our next animal species. If you want to go ahead and wave to Charlotte, the Chilean rose-haired tarantula, that would be a good time.
She's not dangerous.
She's not dangerous. She could bite. She never has, but like I said, they're very docile, and she's never bit me or anything else like that. They're really good pets, actually. They're easy to care for, and they can live a really long time if you get a female. Males only live typically 1 or 2 years, but she can live up to 20 years, sometimes more than that, which is pretty cool. But I really like these flowers. I really like this view of the desert area we have at the ENC, but I apologize, we have to go inside now because our next animal friend is so nocturnal that actually the light kind of makes her a little bit, or him a little bit sensitive. But he also has a really cool adaptation too. Let's go check him out. This is Edward. Edward is a desert hairy scorpion. And if you notice, I'm not holding this animal. That is because I'm not very brave and I'm not very quick. And she has that little barb on the end of her tail, and she could sting me pretty easily. If she stung me, again, I wouldn't have to go to the hospital probably, but I would probably cry a little bit, and nobody wants to see that sort of thing. So she has that really interesting tail, and what she does is, remember those pedipalps we were talking about with the tarantula? Her pedipalps are actually these interesting pinchers, and she'll pinch her food and grab it. Maybe she'll inject it with venom, and then she will suck out the insides, kind of like a milkshake, like the tarantula would too. So she also has these hairs that help her sense the world around her, that cover her exoskeleton, and that's pretty handy because she survives at night. She's usually awake during the night and asleep during the day. That makes her nocturnal. So at nighttime it can be really hard to see, but if you have something like a UV light, you can actually see scorpions glow. We're going to try it right now. It's kind of spooky, right? Her exoskeleton reflects UV light, and scientists aren't 100% sure about why it reflects the UV light, what sort of adaptation that would have. And the good news about that is we can try and figure it out ourselves. Why do you think this would be an adaptation that would help her to survive? Why would glowing with UV light survive? I'm not sure, but if you can guess, that would be good. So she has 8 legs. She's an arachnid like Charlotte the tarantula, and she can use those pedipalps to grab her food, and she can use that barbed tail to inject venom into her prey or to some animal she feels threatened by, she might think as a predator. Sometimes when I go to get her out of her enclosure, whether that's to take her maybe to the vet or give her some food or clean out her cage, she will try and use that barb on me. So I have a special card that I'll use to extract her from the tank and without getting barbed or anything else like that. She's actually pretty fast. She's not moving right now because even though it's dark in here, she still can see all that bright light. And so she can be really fast during the nighttime. She actually leaves little prints, and they're not paw prints because she doesn't have paws like a puppy, but little prints in the sand in her enclosure. And the good thing about that is in the ENC we have our museum, and you can come and see her enclosure through glass, and you can see those little paw prints in the future. She eats the same thing as our friend Charlotte. They have a lot in common, her and the rosy haired tarantulas. She likes to eat insects, and she only eats about once a week too, and she eats even smaller little worms. Alright, we're going to leave Edward be because, like I said, he gets a little bit stressed out by all this light. So you can go ahead and wave with your emojis. Is there a scorpion emoji? I don't know. There has to be, right? Yeah, there is. Thank you for joining us. That was all of our arthropods that we were planning on seeing today, but the good news is we saw, 1, 2, 3, 4. We saw a death feigning beetle. We saw a walking stick. We saw a rosy haired tarantula. We saw a desert hairy scorpion. One of my favorite things about arthropods is that you don't have to go to a zoo to see them. If you go to your front door right now, you might find one right now. Maybe it's just a tiny little ant, maybe it's a roly-poly, maybe there's a worm after it rains. Arthropods are all around us, and it's starting to get to the type of season where you'll see a lot of them flying around. Pollinators. Last week we had a lot of talking about pollinators. We've been releasing some videos on our YouTube channel about pollinators, and they're really interesting animals. Arthropods are some of the most interesting pollinators, like butterflies. And you can start to see some butterflies, and when you see these animals, you can make some observations about what they do to survive, or how they even help new plants to grow. It's a pretty interesting thing that we can all do. You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to go to college to study these sorts of things. You can just make some observations about animals. But if you see an arthropod, should you pick it up? You can observe them easily with a magnifying glass or close up. But if we pick up animals, especially arthropods, sometimes they can bite us, sometimes they can creep us out, and we end up accidentally dropping them. And even though their exoskeletons are really strong, they might not survive the fall. So we want to let them survive in their really interesting habitat. So Make sure to tune in to Instagram Live on Wednesday and Friday. We're going to be doing some other videos like I mentioned before. On Wednesday we're doing a video about how to leave no trace when you're out in nature, maybe looking for arthropods. And then on Friday we're going to be learning about how Native Americans survived with just plants 500 years ago, and which ones are edible and what sort of benefits they can give you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to visit encenter.org to check out our events calendar to see what we have coming up next. And if you want to donate or become a member, that would be extremely helpful and extremely appreciated by not just me, but also all the animals that you saw today that helps to pay for their care. So it's very appreciated. Thanks very much. And if you have any more comments or questions, right now would be a good time. We'll spend a few seconds seeing if there are any more comments and questions, and we can answer real quick.
Does the scorpion live in a burrow?
The scorpion doesn't live in the burrow, but he does like it to be really, really dark, and he'll actually kind of hang out underneath rocks and crevices, whereas he's protected but also pretty dark. But he's not as good at digging as the tarantula is. Good question.
Abby says that we rock.
This is also true. Not a question, but it's appreciated. Maybe it's a fact, I'm not sure, but thank you.
Are we going to be posting this video anywhere else to watch later?
We are intending to post it to YouTube, so check out our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe, like button, all those things you're supposed to say, right? You can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That video should be up tomorrow, and we post videos every single day. Some of them are live videos from Facebook, but some of them are unique videos that you're not going to find anywhere else. Some of them are actually virtual field trips, so you can take your own field trip from inside your house. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to our animal friends, and we'll see you in the next one.